in normal times, I would be heading off to events, covering them, interviewing people, having my ear to the ground, finding local stories. So, but yeah, as things are opening up again, I'm going to be covering more events. So I don't know if you're aware, there was an anime studio in Japan, in Kyoto, that got attacked, had an arson attack.
I saw that you posted about that on Twitter.
Yeah, so that was actually on July 16th, 2019, my first day. So that was the first big story I covered. So they're doing their first in-person event, because every 2 years they do a fan appreciation event. They're doing their first in-person event in 2 years.
On Crunchyroll, you actually post like I think 3 articles a day sometimes. Is that
my average is about 4 a
4?
day. I'm a trained social media marketer, so prior to doing this job, I was a digital marketer for a Japanese company, as well as I was liaisoning and helping out other Japanese companies with their social media because they're terrible at it. Then I did that in Australia for a little bit, and I also worked in an anime company in Australia doing the social media. I mean, social media anywhere is just stressful. It's just it's kind of like being a journalist in the sense that you don't really have an off time. You're always on. It's getting better. Like, I've seen the people inside of Crunchyroll on their social media team, and they get time off, which is nice. But
a little jealous, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit. And then in Japan, a lot of it is trying to be like, hey, this could be fun. And they're like, could it though? Really? And I'm just like, just post it. And they're like, oh, we'll have to send it to like the head person to make sure it gets
all the
approved.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah. So it can be really tough. But yeah, for me personally, I don't really have any strategies at the moment. There was a time where I used to jump on everything and think my opinion was very important to be heard and lots of stuff. I've learned better. So I've matured. Yeah. It comes with experience. When you have a following, it's very easy to have that following then spread your message, which may be out of context. You may also find individuals who are not always the most righteous of people, and they just do it for the fun of it. Then you get death threats, especially as like a journalist. There will be a lot of people critiquing on social media. So just kind of be wary of what you post and how that can look back on you. I once wrote something that had one of my bosses pop into my DMs be like, yeah, you probably shouldn't say that. But you know, that was once over the last 2 and a bit years. So
pretty good track record, I'd say so.
I like interacting with people. I really enjoy the interaction. That's one thing that I really like about being prolific on the internet, is having that feedback, the immediate feedback. There are always, again, bad eggs who, you know, like to just have their fun. Troll. Yeah. But no, I really do enjoy, especially when people bring up points that I just didn't think of. Social media is a two-edged sword. On one hand, you have, like, as you said, news is spreading faster than ever before. One example I think of recent years is like, was it the Belarus explosion? Like, you heard about it basically instantly on social media because people were like, there was a big explosion, and everyone's like, wait, what? The BBC comes out 15 minutes after with an actual article. And it's great. Like, I love the fact that news is so accessible, so easy to understand. But on the flip side of that, if you're first, you're normally the truth, I should say, which makes it hard to try and change that perception. So there's a lot of misinformation. There is a lot of misinformation out there, which is it's just a thing that exists at the moment. It's been there for a while. It's just now becoming mainstream. And it's really difficult when there's a story that isn't wholly true or isn't completely true that comes out first. And then you have to be like, oh, okay, so what are their sources? What information did they get? And then you have to do the legwork yourself to try and figure out. And then you post a story and then don't get any traction. So that it's just like, well, you know, the truth is being shaped by our perception of what we saw first, which sometimes is or isn't true.
Most people just see the first thing and then they never like follow up on the story or anything. They just accept the first thing that they saw as
exactly. Deal with. But when you're translating comments from people, especially controversial figures or controversial subjects, sometimes the translations may be off, sometimes may not be wholly correct, or sometimes the context might be missing or their intonation. And that can give a wholly different interpretation of what was said, which makes it really difficult. And there's certain phrases used in Japanese which don't
directly translate.
You're right. For example, there's the word mansion. Right, mansion in English is of course big, huge place you live in. A mansion in Japanese is basically just a nice looking apartment. So it's stuff like that. Because Google Translate is so prolific as well, people think, oh, I'll just translate this using Google Translate. And when it comes up with, oh, mansion is mansion, they must mean big, expensive place. Well, it's not. It's completely different. You don't have those cultural cues, basically. So there's some phrases, some words that just don't directly translate. You have to know those cultural cues. When I was doing classes in journalism in school, it was always like you have to run down to the courthouse and, you know, get the beat there. You know, you have to be on location. Whereas nowadays, you can find a lot of the information online, and you can find a lot of discussion about it online. Usually, places have press releases now, which obviously the press releases aren't the whole truth, so you do have to do some investigation. But you can basically, at least for me, do most of it from home. But for day-to-day stuff, going out on the beat doesn't really need to happen as much. Written is a lot easier to do just sitting in an office or at home. But I think video still needs that component of being out. Because it gives that level of authenticity. I don't have a lot of hope at the moment for good journalism coming out. I hope the next generation are much more tech savvy. I feel like there are a lot of really good content out there, but having it behind paywalls makes it really difficult for it to get out there. But I really feel video is the way forward. And even I put a lot of images in my article that are bright and colorful just to keep the reader's attention.
For sure.
And I think Vox is a really good example of this, of how engaging they are and how enjoyable they are to read and watch. And I feel like that is basically going to be the future. It's how engaging you are to the audience you're trying to hit. That's why I feel like I do a good job, is because I'm always really engaging to the audience, and my story is always really engaging. Not to fluff myself up.
Go for it. That's why we're here.
You know, it's always about picking the right shots. It's always about, you know, the way you word things. It's also familiarity with the audience as well. There is nothing worse than reading a piece by someone who doesn't understand your beat. One great example is Washington Post. They have a great TikTok. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes, I've seen a couple of their TikTok.
Oh, that's so good. That's such a great way of keeping people engaged while also having a lot of fun. And I'd love to do something like that in the future. I'm currently working with like the social media team to build up TikTok stuff from Japan. So hopefully we can move some news onto there. We're just kind of like testing the waters now, because on that side of things, there's a lot of approval processes they have to go through. And that's one thing that we have to deal with a lot is like approval processes. So we have like a certain screenshots we're allowed to use and stuff like that, which makes it difficult at times, especially when you're like, I am talking about this, so I would like a screenshot of this, but I can't use it because it hasn't been approved. And when you're in such tight deadlines like we are, it's really difficult to try and get those approvals.
Right.
But hopefully we can get a sort of streamlined process to get TikTok stuff going.
One day.
Last year, we did a 1 year on basically feature series on the studio, which culminated in an interview with the president. Ooh. And that's got for an award. So yay.
Wow.
It's award nominated. Different cultures have different ideas on racism. They've got different cultural backgrounds, they've got different gendered backgrounds and all this sort of stuff.
Right.
And sometimes it can be really difficult to sort of tiptoe through that because I'm not American, I'm Australian. Mm-hmm. So I'm not as well versed with the American landscape as much as I could be. Obviously, I didn't grow up there, so I don't have that sort of information ingrained in me that an American journalist might. Australia has their own set of problems. Don't get me wrong. We have our, but also Japan itself has different ideals when it comes to those sort of situations. So a few times, I've written articles that aren't racist per se, and aren't supposed to be conveyed that way, but due to the language that's used, could be conveyed that way to an American reader. This is going to get into some weird stuff. The swastika is actually very prominent in Japan,
right? Because
it's on temples all over the country. And it's actually the symbol for temples. It's called the Manji symbol. And I have seen personally people go to those temples and be like, why is there a Nazi symbol up there? I don't want to offend anyone. It's just I'm no one can be that knowledgeable to not try and offend 4 different countries at once.
Right.
Oh, we've got multiple advocacy groups that just watch what we write. One of the hardest things I deal with a lot is imposter syndrome. And as you get further in the career and you get more notability or you get awards, you're just like, I don't deserve this. That's one thing that I don't think they teach in university as much as how to deal with those sort of situations. So wherever you go in your career, it'll probably be very well deserved.
Oh, that's some nice words of wisdom.
I say probably because I don't know. You might go off the wrong track. Hopefully not.
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully not. Fingers crossed that everything goes well, right?